Welcome to the Music Habits Podcast, episode 68.
Welcome to the Ableton and Music Habits Podcast. Actionable music production tips to take your music to the next level. And now, your host, Jason Timothy.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Music Habits Podcast. This one's a special one. I don't do too many interviews on here. I usually just blab on my own. But I have Kristin Wilson with me. She is a DJ that's been really making a lot of moves, and she's got an incredible story to tell. And we kind of want to just get into this. I've been wanting to do this for months, and we've been going back and forth. Her DJ schedule and schedule for her business has been a little crazy. So it's really great that we could both make the time to make this happen. So welcome, Kristin.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm so happy to be here, and just want to say hi to everybody listening because I listen to your podcast so much, and I've listened to every episode at least once, probably twice. And always when this was before I even started producing, I would be walking through my neighborhood and I would be wondering, like, who are the other people listening to this podcast? You know, what kind of music did they make and where were they living and everything? I know nothing about your stats, but I just feel like everybody who's come across your podcast and your content, we're probably kindred spirits, you know, like we all had problems, we all had questions, we were all struggling with stuff, and then we landed on your content. So I think everybody that knows you, I think we all would have something in common there. So shout out to everybody listening.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, I'm always really surprised at the people who do listen, because a lot of times the people that find me, this isn't their first go with music related or music production stuff. I'm surely not the first person that they find, but I do get a lot of really great and positive responses from people who have bounced around for a while and just find this podcast to be helpful in a different way. Not necessarily better, but maybe I talk a little bit about things that aren't talked about as often with music production. And
definitely. Well. It feels a need. It's like, yeah, this aspect that no one talks about. Everybody's all about tutorials and how to do this and that. And you have that stuff too, but I think the mental game, which is what your book is about, that's the more important part here.
I think that is the part that connects everything else. Mm-hmm. You know, so I look at the tutorial aspect to be where people go once they get their mind straight. Mm-hmm. You know, because if your brain was ready to go the moment it got information, then YouTube would be the answer already.
Right.
So that's kind of what I felt was missing. But this is about you. So I think we've got a lot to learn from you, but I really appreciate the kudos from your end. It's always great to hear how people came across me and how it's affected them. So with what you do, you seem to start from the DJ angle, and looks like you've got a viral story about how you started and how you built your career. You started a little later than some people do. So that's got to be really exciting for some people listening who feel like it's too late for them. I think Kristin will have something to say on that subject. Why don't we get into how you got started with all of this?
Yeah, so it's funny that we're doing this now because right before we started recording, I was telling you about this video I just published yesterday on my DJ YouTube channel. And I've been posting there for a year of all DJ sets. But then I felt like I needed to start talking to people and not just do music, because somebody made a comment. I posted a radio show where I'm actually talking into the microphone, and people were commenting like, wow, this is the first time we've heard your voice and you should do more talking. And so, yeah, I posted this video called How I Became a DJ at 39 years old. Maybe we can link to it in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And I've been so surprised at how many comments. I mean, first, it's like the #1 video on my channel right now. You know, we get rankings in the YouTube studio. It's like 1 of 10. And just people coming out of the woodwork of all ages, like 33, 39, 55, like people who never DJ'd before, people who used to DJ and then they had kids and they got away from it. And everyone's like, thank you. You know, I really needed to see this. So yeah, for people that are kind of getting a later start or feel like they are, then my story might resonate. But really, I think it started like my first memory of when I thought I want to DJ probably was going back to just like loving music and listening to classical music with my grandparents on their record player. And I was a dancer, I was a gymnast, I was a ballerina. Like my brain has been programmed to count to 8. to count bars of music ever since I could walk, like since I was 2 or 3 years old and I was in dance class. So I just grew up around that. And then when I was 11 years old, I went to a school dance in 6th grade and I saw the DJs playing on vinyl. And I was just mesmerized. I just remember standing behind the crappy folding tables that they had in the 90s in schools. Yeah. They probably still have those. It's like standing behind this crappy, like fake wooden folding table, watching this guy DJ. And I was like, what is this? Like, how do I do this? Because I used to record stuff on tape decks on my stereo or thing, whatever they call it back then. And in high school, I was a cheerleader and I used to mix the music for my cheerleading squad also on tape decks. And I would add sound effects and like explosions and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I would choreograph the dances as well. So I think I was always leaning in that direction, but it was a time before the internet. And the images of DJs that I saw didn't look like me. It wasn't like some little white girl. It was like some super cool, like hip hop DJ or something. So I just didn't do it. I didn't think I could. I wasn't very musical. I mean, I took piano lessons, so I probably was good at music. I just had some limiting beliefs, but I didn't start attempting to DJ until 2008. When I was in my 20s and I was living in Costa Rica and I signed up for this like reggaeton DJ course. And it got canceled because I was the only person that signed up for it. So still, I don't know if there were even CDJs at that time, maybe. But anyway, continued on with my life. Another 10 years, Jason, 10 more years. I was in Amsterdam for ADE in 2018. I had already been, since about 2012, I had been traveling to Europe. I had discovered electronic music. I was searching on my iPod or in the Apple iTunes store looking for house music because I found out in 2012 what house music was. And anyway, so I was like on this journey through Europe, like going to festivals. And finally in 2018, I took a Airbnb experience DJ course. And it was just like an hour or so with these other girls from around the world that were just tourists on vacation. And I was hooked from then on, and then just kind of pursued it slowly over the next couple of years while I was working full time and traveling. And it wasn't until the pandemic happened that I really took it seriously. And we were on lockdown. So I was actually happy, not about the pandemic, but I was happy that I was stuck in one place and I could buy equipment and take online courses and teach myself how to DJ. So that was like 2020, 2021. And then Miami was one of the places that opened first before the rest of the world. We had clubs open and parties and everything. So I went out for Miami Music Week 2021, which was like an unofficial music week because things were still a bit iffy. So I went out and I went to this blondish show, and she had an after party at a warehouse that was illegal. So we were back in the illegal rave days. And one of the guys that was opening for her, his name is Differ, and he's from Argentina. He's actually the guy that plays with Hernan Cantaneo a lot. And I saw him play, and I was just, my mind was blown by his level of skill with his setup and everything. He was using Tractor and a K2. And so I ended up being his first DJ student because I followed him on Instagram and he posted that he was going to give DJ lessons. And even though I already kind of knew what I was doing, I was his first student. And then him and his other professor, Tony Guerra, who's this like massive DJ from Venezuela, who's now playing with Martinez Brothers and stuff like that. He was my other teacher. So now they're both my mentors, and they brought my skill level up, 10x what I could do by myself. No, like 100x at this point. They also helped me get my first gigs. And I think their validation in the community of Miami that like they were booking me for gigs, then everybody else thought, oh, okay, we can book this girl. We've never heard of her. Because I didn't live here. I just was here for a year or so.
Oh, I see.
So that helped me get gigs. And then, kind of the rest is history. My first gig was December 1st, 2021. And now I've played all over the world whenever I travel for work. I've played everywhere from like Chicago to New York to Amsterdam, London, Manchester, Portugal, Istanbul, Mexico, Tulum. Like everywhere I go, I DJ and I try to get gigs. And so it's been really fun.
It's fantastic to hear that there is a path that someone who starts this late can take and actually successfully get gigs and start building their reputation, where most DJs start in a local circuit and are never really able to escape that. Would you say that the mentoring was what catapulted your career
Actually, no, because a lot of the other students that studied with the same people, they're still DJing here in Miami. Some of them have moved to California or Vegas or went back to wherever they lived before. So I don't think it was necessarily that. I think that definitely helped with my practical skills of DJing because I had taken a bunch of online courses, but doing it in person with somebody was really helpful. But I think it was more that I integrated DJing into my lifestyle the way I had it already. So I already was traveling around. My job is currently it's like YouTube and content and consulting, but before it was 100%. I was a relocation consultant. So I help people move to different countries. I still do that. So I would go to all of these countries and just have a nice lifestyle as either living abroad as an expat or a foreigner or as a digital nomad. And now I was just able to add DJing on top of that. But I do think that anyone who's a DJ needs to think about what is their 5-year plan? What is their 10-year plan? Like, where do they want to go with this? It's actually not hard to get gigs anywhere. You just have to ask a lot of people. You know, you're going to get turned down a lot of times. You're going to get no answers, no response a lot of times. But if you ask enough people, like anyone listening, like you could make your own DJ tour right now by just contacting clubs all around your state, all around your country. You might have to pay for it yourself. You know, you're not going to get big fees. But that's what I did. Basically, I just reached out to promoters and clubs in every city that I went to. And I asked if they had openings, and at least one person would say yes. And then I would get booked, and I put that on social media, and then other people would see, and then they would reach out to book me. So yeah, like if you live in Dallas, Texas, you can reach out to clubs in California and Arizona, Chicago, New York, Miami, Atlanta, and just try to play in different places. Because I saw the other Miami DJs, I looked at their Instagram, and you could scroll back 10 years and they're playing at the same exact clubs that they're playing at now. It's like the same flyers with the same names, with different club names, because some of them went out of business. And I was like, I don't want to play for 10 years, the same circuit, the same clubs. So you just have to invest in yourself and foot the bill for the travel and stuff, and even the content. Like I'll do gigs sometimes for $100 or $150. And the photographer costs $250. So I'm like in the hole for that gig. But if it's worth it to get content, I'm like, well, I'd rather just give my earnings to the photographer or the videographer and get content, because I think this gig will lead to one that pays $500 or will give me the connections to get another one. So you've got to definitely think outside of the box and find your own way, and, you know, try to find someone that's doing what you want to do and model after that.
So how would you gauge a successful gig then? Obviously, it's not financial, but content-wise, what are you looking for? What is successful for you in the beginning? Is there an approach that you take with your content creation that you think gets the most traction?
It depends at what phase of your career you're in. So when I first started, the first year and a half, I didn't really do any content. I did a couple of after movies just to have something to put on Instagram, and I got some press photos for my press kit, things like that. So probably over the first year and a half, maybe I invested about $1,000 in getting that kind of stuff. But then, of course, all the music equipment, DJ equipment, everything is expensive as well. And I kept my normal job. Like I still have my normal job. So if I was a full-time DJ where this was my full-time income, I would probably invest a little bit less in the content, because the income from the gigs, like if it's a residency at a restaurant or a brunch spot or wedding receptions or other kinds of income like that, that's going to pay your rent and pay your bills, it's important to do that first. But since I'm old now, like I'm older, I have had my business for so long. I've created so many different revenue streams that I can depend on for paying my bills. I'm not rich or anything, but I have, you know, different income streams. So DJing is like my passion project. Like I'm very negative on income from DJing and music production. I've spent thousands of dollars on equipment, skills, and content. And I know it's going to take a while to get that back. Like it could take easily 5 or 10 years before that all comes back, but it's exponential. Like it took me over a year to get 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube travel channel. And then it only took another year to get 10,000, and then another year to get 90,000. And then your income goes from $0 to $500 a month to $2,000 a month to $5,000 a month. Right. And then all of a sudden if you have a YouTube channel where you don't have to have 100,000 subscribers, like now that one has like 250,000 subscribers, but you start getting opportunities. You're going to get higher paying gigs. You're going to get companies reaching out to you to give you free product to promote their stuff on your channel. Then they're going to start paying you. So I used to do videos for free product. Now I get paid thousands of dollars per video for brand deals. I'm going to do the same thing with music. My DJ channel has 1,500 subscribers, but just wait 3 years and it's going to be tens of thousands of subscribers. I'll have companies, promoters, people reaching out, trying to give me stuff, give me money and get promotion for their brands, book me for their stuff. So I'm playing the long game. And I like this game because it's fun. Like you don't have to rush. You got to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy the grind. So to answer your question in like a very long way, at first I was playing some gigs for free or for promotion. I was playing gigs for $100 and just trying to get my name out there. But then I very quickly like raised my rate and was more selective with the gigs and started investing my proceeds from the gigs into building my brand, buying equipment, getting coaching, and creating content. So if people are doing this as a passion project, they have another source of income, whether they have a 9-to-5 job or they're waiting tables or whatever it is that they're doing, it's just going to be a grind for a few years. But once you can build your brand enough, then you'll start getting those exponential gains back. So there's not really a science to it at this point. I'm just investing in content, recording every single set. Even if I don't have a videographer, I record myself with a GoPro because it's free. Like it's free distribution. You can film everything that you do, create content with it, and distribute it around the world for free. So it's like, I just feel like if I can do it, why wouldn't I do that? So that's my plan.
So you're taking your whole DJ thing as almost like a multimedia venture. So you would say in the beginning, you should focus more on content creation instead of trying to focus on getting high-paying gigs.
Yeah, it depends what your end goal is. Like, I want to also be a producer, but I know I can make music and DJ for decades. Like, there's 90-year-old people DJing out there. So I'm like, I'm not in a hurry. I'm just building this brand, creating content, building an email list so that when I release tracks, I have people to share it with. I have people to, download it. Like, if you want to be a full-time DJ and you want to play the local scene, you probably don't need as much content. You just need to put some stuff on Instagram here and there. And you really need to go out a lot and meet a lot of people in your environment, which I also do, but in moderation because I need to sleep sometimes. But if you want to get out of your local area and you want to play in other cities and other countries, then you've got to invest in yourself in different ways, in content, in going to events and festivals and other places, and meeting DJs that you can send your music to, like creating those personal experiences. And that all takes money. Like, I've been to Amsterdam Dance Event probably 7 times. And I know I'll play there one day. I don't know when, but it will probably be related to all of the times I went and all of the people I met, and I saw them every year. And it's kind of like that. It's like the circle of life.
You seem to have a philosophy that you just have to play the long game, connect, and document your whole journey. And it sounds also like you're discovering that your personality coming through on top of the music at times can really boost who you are as a person. Because in this day and age, it seems to me that the personality behind the artist might be one of the most important aspects of what you do. Sometimes that can get you more success than talent alone. Very often, there's a lot of talented people that go unnoticed because they don't show themselves.
I would say I agree with that. Like, on one side, I'm in the camp of be so good they can't ignore you. Like, if you really focus and put in the hours and everything, and you can get so good that people will notice. But there's so many good, talented people out there that aren't noticed right now that could be if they just put themselves out there more. Because we're all individuals and we all have friends. We all have our personalities, and people that you meet through the internet, they're just friends you haven't met in person that are going to be drawn to you for whatever reason. Like, whether you play EDM or psytrance, the internet lets us find our tribe of people. Like, you don't have to be everything to everyone, just be something. And I do see other people in my area making different decisions. Like, they don't create any content. They just go out a lot. They network a lot. They support so many people They're going out 5 nights a week. They're collaborating on tracks with the people that they're supporting at the DJ gigs. And they're getting places too. Like there's a lot of different paths to get to the place that you want to go. But I personally don't want to burn myself out, like playing a bunch of gigs every week and going to everyone else's gigs and, to get to the same place kind of thing. It's like, I would rather do it this way where I'm like making meaningful relationships along the way, but I'm also, connecting with people that I'll never meet in person around the world. Like if you hadn't have created your content, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, like I would have never found your music. And like, I was listening to it all morning today at the beach. Like, I mean, I might have seen your name when I was downloading tracks, but there's millions of tracks every day. But now, like, I'll always remember, like, if I'm playing a gig, I'll know to search for your name in my library because I know what I'm going to get versus there's a lot of producers that I might play their tracks a lot, but I can't even remember their names sometimes because I don't have any interaction with them. I was actually thinking the other day, something that could be helpful would be to just every day spend time like researching the producer, like go on their social media, see what they post about, send them a message to try to get my brain to associate a person with the name and with the music, because that's how humans form connections. So yeah, it's about the people. Like there's a lot of hate out there with people saying it's all who you know, it doesn't matter about your skill at all. And that happens sometimes, like the world isn't fair. But then you also get people like Fisher who have really big personalities and still good music. Like maybe they're not, Mozart or something, but they have like a fun personality, a good social media presence, and their music's good and it makes people dance. And then, they're playing like main stage at Coachella and Creamfields and things like this, mostly because of their personality.
Right. So if someone didn't really have a brand and they were starting out, they've either been DJing for a while and just haven't gotten out there, or they haven't really gotten started. They don't know where to start. What would be your advice to getting your brand started so that people can discover not only your music, but also relate to you on a more personal level?
It's funny because on my YouTube thumbnail, it says just start. Like it's really about just starting, but it's also about choosing where you want to connect with people. Like I recommend to everybody to pick one social media platform or one network. Like where are your people going to be? Is it Instagram? Is it TikTok? Is it YouTube? Where's the place that you hang out the most consuming content? And what is your preferred way of communicating? Like a lot of musicians don't like talking or, wouldn't have a podcast. That doesn't resonate with everyone, but it works for you. It works for me. But you also become what you do. Like you acquire the identity of your actions. So 6 years ago, I wasn't a podcaster, but 6 years later and 280 episodes later, I identify as a podcaster and a podcast host and a YouTuber. It was so hard for me to even say I was a YouTuber for like the first 5 years. But now, you start to acquire that. So figure out, do you like Twitter or X? Do you like Discord? Do you like, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like whatever your forum is, Reddit, did I say that? Figure out where you want to hang out and then create all of your content there. So if that's on X, you're going to be writing like really cool tweets. If it's on Instagram, you better get really good at making Instagram reels and like post one reel a day or something. If it's YouTube, start taking YouTube courses. First start like publishing, but also you got to get better at the platform that you're publishing on, and just accept that you're going to suck for a while, just like we did with DJing. I mean, when I first started DJing, I didn't understand what the cue button did, Right. And now I have a hybrid live setup. Like I would have never, ever thought that I could play on the setup that I use now when I first started. And then with YouTube, like I look at my first videos and they were horrible. Live streams with blurry camera and, just really bad. But no one cares. You just keep going and keep going. And then eventually people don't even see that old stuff. They don't listen to your first tracks that you ever made. They'll listen to the more recent stuff and they won't even know what your past is. Like we focus so much on what we are, how we see ourselves now and the mistakes we made in the past. But it's just like, just pick a thing and do that thing and then do it for 10 years and just get 1% better at it and you'll find success.
Yeah, I think you are judged in this climate on your best stuff. your worst stuff will fade away. Just focus on getting better at what you're doing, because that, at the end of the day, is going to be what sells you. Your best stuff is going to be the thing that most people are going to know you for.
Yeah, it's like 1% of the stocks are responsible for 99% of the returns or something like that. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it's like the 80-20 rule where 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs. I think it's more like 99-1, like 99% of your results come from 1%, or, some like really extreme measure. There's like a lot of things that we do in a day, but probably only 1% of our actions have the impact that we're looking for. Like if you have a 9-to-5 job, 100% of your income comes from your job, or maybe 99% of it comes from your job and 1% comes from your side hustle or something like that. Just pick a place to be yourself and then commit to that, and then just do it. Just start and see where you get after 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, and keep pivoting, keep adjusting.
I like that you have this kind of long-term attitude towards what you're doing, which takes a lot of the stress away, because a lot of people want everything right now. And I think longevity, most people's success, if you really look back at it, longevity has almost always been a factor in true success in almost any field, but most certainly in the music field. You may get attention quickly once things catch on, but to think that these people didn't prepare for years and years and years beforehand is a little bit silly. When it comes to your content, what would you consider bad content now that you've explored this? And what would you consider good content?
That's a really good question. I think whether something is good or bad is subjective. Like, even though I found a lot of success in my content, like I just saw online that I have more than 100 million views across different platforms, like photography, video. That's what's like registered, right? It's probably more than that. But somebody who's more experienced, who's more successful, like Mr. Beast or some of the big YouTubers, they would look at my content and laugh. Like they would think that it's so bad, because I don't know what I don't know. Like I don't know what it takes to get 10 million views a month or 100 million views a month. I have like 100 million views lifetime. So there's like levels to each thing, and you don't know until you get to the next level, and then you can look back. It's like, I don't even play video games, but I used to. So when you get to the next level of a video game for the first time, you didn't even know what was in that level. It was like the secret level. And then once you get it, now you know how to get there, and you can get there more often. That's how it is with content. So I would say if you're just starting from zero and you've chosen your platform, you want to think about, like, what do you want to share with people? If you're a producer, do you just want to share your tracks? Do you want to share how to produce music? If you're a DJ, do you want to share DJ sets? Do you want to share DJ tutorials? You can look at what other people are doing in your niche and see what resonates you. Like, think of the content that you see, think of it as buckets, and each bucket is different. So if you have a music channel on YouTube, you could have one bucket that's gear reviews. You could have one video or one bucket that is production tutorials. You could have different buckets for different kinds of production. You could have one bucket for interviews with other producers. You could have a bucket for like how I made this song in 1 hour or whatever. You pick your things. And so just start with that and then see what works. We were talking before, like, are we making content for people, or are we making it for the algorithm and for the machines? I think it's a combination of both. Like, I had a video about the first country on the internet that I published it, and it was like my worst performing video in a long time. I changed the thumbnail, and it went from getting 1,000 views to 100,000 views in like a week, because the packaging wasn't right. The content was good, the title was good, but the thumbnail sucked. So I swapped it out. Like, you try different things. And like, if things aren't working and you're not making progress as fast as you want, that doesn't mean that you're not making progress. That doesn't mean that it's not working. It's just, it might take more time, or you might need to make some adjustments along the way. When I first started my YouTube channel, the DJ channel, it got 1 view in a day, 10 views in a day. Now It's like 500 to 1,000 views in a day. But every week or every other week, I would publish a new video. I would see how it performed. I would see what are the comments, what are people saying. And I would take that feedback in for the next video. So even though I had a successful channel in a different niche, that didn't guarantee that this channel would be successful right off the bat either. But you've got to think of that image where somebody's like walking and they turn around or they stop. And it's like they stopped right before they got to the treasure chest or whatever it was that they were trying to get to. So you never know if you quit, you never know where, like how close were you to the success that you wanted, or like that little small win that's going to give you the motivation to go to the next thing. And that's why I think of it in such a long-term way, because you look at people like Richie Houghton, how long has he been doing this? 35 years?
Yeah.
Like my 2 or 3 years in the music industry, like people think they're going to get booked at the biggest festivals after a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. Like Richie Houghton's been doing this for 35 years, and you've got to keep innovating. He went from vinyl to all these different things. And now he has his own mixer that he designed, and he used to throw his own parties in Detroit. And, like you got to find your way and just keep going, and don't give up on yourself for at least the first 10 years.
I think that's really great advice. I kind of like that you're saying 10 years, because part of me gets a little cringy. 10 years, right? But when I think about it, especially for people starting off, this for me is about 35 years in my music journey as well. It didn't start with DJing. It started with being in bands and playing guitar and that sort of thing, and being a new wave goth kid. But that progression, has grown. The promotional aspect of it has become very different than the days where you made a bunch of flyers and handed it out to everyone publicly. What do you think about the quality of content? Like, is a phone good enough for someone making content?
Yep. Yeah. When I first started, I just had my iPhone. I bought a GoPro and I literally didn't know how to turn it on. I had to look at the manual. I didn't realize that it was the same button to turn it on as to record. So
right.
Coming from someone who didn't know how to operate a GoPro, and who I never saw myself as being very tech savvy, you just start with what you have. And I didn't even know you needed a microphone. I thought I would just talk to the camera as is. But, now I own like 10 different microphones. So yeah, just start with what you have. I mean, I would say there's no such thing as bad content. All the like quote unquote bad content that you make is just information to help you improve that content. And eventually it'll get to a place that you're satisfied with it. But then when you look at it a year later, it looks bad to you again. So it's like a song that you think is great and it gets released on a record label. You might be embarrassed of that track in a couple of years. And that's how it is with content. So there's this video that came up on my feed recently. It was like this old man sitting on a farm, smoking a cigar and just talking to the camera about life or something. And it had like 5 million views or something. So, it really doesn't matter. Like you can be some old man in Montana just shooting the shit, sitting on your farm in the middle of nowhere, talking to 5 million people on the internet, or, just whatever content you attempt to do. It could fail. It could get 0 views for a while or whatever. But if you keep going, you keep learning, you keep looking at other people's content and analyzing how did that perform well. Like Fleur, do you know Fleur Shore? Fleur. She's a DJ from the UK who became a producer during the pandemic, I think. And she decided to post 1 Instagram reel a day. And she did that for I think it was a year, 10 months or something, or a year, maybe longer, before one of her reels blew up. And that one reel got her 100,000 followers on Instagram or something. And yeah, she just, who knows how many of her reels failed, but it's just a numbers game. So now she's getting all these huge gigs, and she's teaching other people production through big companies that have these schools for production. And she has her own program and stuff. And it's probably just because she posted 1 Instagram reel a day. I'm sure her music is good, her DJ sets are good, but how could you compare? Are they that much better than other DJs? There's millions of DJs or whatever. So the thing that's going to set you apart as a producer and as a DJ is just, putting yourself out there, or having some unique selling proposition, or something about you that no one else has, which is just you being you, basically. You don't even have to try. She just posted reels of herself DJing and of herself producing, and didn't try to be anything she wasn't. It's just the algorithm picked one to go viral. And then that probably led to a lifetime of opportunities from that, So whether it's Instagram or YouTube, not everybody even likes to create content. So just pick the kind of content or the platform that feels the most natural to you. and the most organic, like you would have hanging out with your friends, and just do that.
So you're basically saying lighten up and just consistently do the work.
Yeah. And don't stress if it doesn't happen, whatever that thing is. If it doesn't happen in 6 months or a few years, really, like it will happen if you keep going.
Which is something I've proven and something you've proven with several of your ventures, which I'd like to get to towards the end of this. I was going to ask you, because many DJs, many people that get involved with DJing, that's their first kind of musical venture. And usually the next obvious choice for some seems to be moving towards making your own tracks and producing your own stuff. Is that something that you think is important to your journey?
I definitely think it's important now. I know that there are DJs that don't produce that are able to be successful both locally and internationally. Internationally, they're probably in the minority, or they've been in the industry a long time. But I do think it would be really hard to come up with no production. The reason I DJ and I want to produce is not necessarily to get to some elite level. Like I definitely would like to play some really cool festivals and things like that. But the production side is more about, I feel like a calling to produce. And if I don't do it, then I just won't be happy in my life. So I have to, it feels like an assignment in a way. Like a fun assignment, but also a difficult assignment. And, I used to think that my grandfather was a violinist from Romania, and I just always was fascinated with music. And when I think about it, I would love to, use Ableton to make classical music, make film scores, write my own little symphony or something. Like there's so much that you can do now without having to learn how to play musical instruments that really appeals to me, because I felt like even after 10 years of piano, I was no, prodigy. It was hard for me. So I do it because I feel like we're all creative and we're all artists. And if you are drawn to DJing and you love music, it's only natural to want to make your own music, especially when you're digging around for music and you can't find what you're looking for. And sometimes you don't even know what you're looking for. And it's the universe being like, make it. You haven't found it because you haven't made it yet. And you don't know what it is until you do the work to have the skills to be able to make it. So I'm on that path now, which is another long path. It's taken me, I've been dabbling with it for 2 years now, kind of in the same way I started DJing, doing different courses, doing some stuff in person, doing my own little challenges. I tried your 1 hour a day challenge. I got to day 17.
That's then a lot more than most people get.
Yeah. So little things like that. I know I'll get there too. It's going to take me some time to get that momentum and everything.
What do you think's getting in your way?
I'm trying, because I've done pretty much exactly what you say not to do. I have a lot of tracks that aren't finished, and I start a new track, and then I'm like, oh, I'm just going to take a break from that one and go back to it later. And then I don't go back to it, that kind of thing. So I've been trying to analyze why, this behavior pattern. One of the things that I feel is that I'm afraid to invest more time in that because of my business. It's probably a story that I'm telling myself, but like you recommend, I've tried producing in the mornings before I'm tired, because, at the end of the day, sometimes you just don't feel like doing anything because you're tired from work or whatever. So I've tried putting it in the morning, but then I get really into it. I can't get myself to stop. So I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to do 30 minutes or something. And then 3 hours goes by, and then I haven't done any work. And then, my work day goes late. So I just haven't found that balance yet. And I've also, like we were saying with DJing, I really don't make any money from DJing. I know it's going to take a long time to make money with music. So I haven't been able to find this place for it in my life without being afraid of my business suffering, or, not being able to meet deadlines for my other work, because all of the work I do is creative. So, we only have a certain number of creative hours per day. And I'm like, do I allocate those hours to writing my book, or writing this YouTube script, or interviewing this person for my podcast? Yeah, I kind of go back and forth. When I'm not as busy at work, then I do more music time, but it's this scale, right? I haven't found the right balance there.
Yeah, I think we need to find you the path to streamlining, so that when you do sit down, it's more productive. I think there's definitely not a motivational issue, I think, with you. I just think that it might be more of like a organizational. You seem to be very organized with the other aspects of your business. And music production can be a completely different animal, and you could get lost in it. And sometimes you can be very productive, or sometimes you get lost EQing a snare for hours or something ridiculous like that. So, and I'm sure that a lot of the listeners here can relate, especially those who are DJs who are trying to get into music production, that it's really easy to get these ideas started. It's about getting it finished. That is the issue. And what I tend to tell people is that if you aren't practicing finishing, then you are building the neural pathways in the habit of not finishing.
Yes.
The things that you don't do are habits as well as the things that you do. So there is an aspect that until you've pushed forward the first time to that next step, and do that 3 or 4 times to get to, just like with a video game, getting to the second level or the third level, your brain doesn't know the path. But once you've gotten further the first time, the second time, the third time, then your brain goes, oh, I can relax. We've done this again. I don't feel like doing this. I feel like I'm stuck, but I've been stuck before. So now you've practiced the getting beyond the stuckness. And now the brain knows how to get to the next step. But I think the first time you do it, it's going to be uncomfortable and it's not going to seem correct. And you're absolutely correct in saying that we've only got a couple creative hours in the day. So these are the times where you have to work on these pressure points at a time where you have creative energy. If you need to, it's fine to set a timer, find a video that will answer your question. But when that timer goes off, you're back to work, because otherwise that'll become another rabbit hole.
I have done that. I always have you in the back of my head when I get stuck on something. I will literally set a timer on my phone and go look up a tutorial or something, because I don't want to count learning things through a tutorial as music production time. So that I did that during my challenge that I did. And I did finish a track. I finished 2 tracks actually during that. I don't think they're good enough to release them, but yeah. So I do think that when I read your book the first time, I didn't know enough about production or even software to get through the book, because, when I started, I just knew zero. So I think I could go back to it now and set up that workflow and the templates and organize my stuff better, because now it's been like a year probably since I read the book and tried to actually implement each step. So yeah, probably some coaching would help too.
That's great. Yeah, I think every time you come back to it, you're going to get something new from it, because you're coming at it from a different place. And the one thing I would congratulate you on is that even though your songs aren't perfect, you got them to a point where you called them done. And something that I've learned is that, and I've used this many times, is if you keep on just getting to the next song and finishing it, and getting to the next song and finishing it, by the time you've finished 7 tracks, 10 tracks, maybe a few more, you'll make a discovery that will not only make that song better than any that you've done, but you'll be able to take that nugget of inspiration that you got, or the connecting of the dots, and you'll be able to go back to your older songs, and spending 10 or 20 minutes on each one, you'll be able to improve all the previous work that you've done.
I could see how that would happen for sure.
So just because you've called it done and moved forward doesn't mean that you can't revisit it and touch it up and make it better. So the more you keep moving forward, the more dots you will connect to your previous work. Well, we've been talking a while. This is going to be a long podcast, which is awesome. What I want to get to is for you to talk about the book that you've written and how this might help people who want to travel with their creative work. And I'm certainly going to read it myself. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So I have been a digital nomad for a really long time. I moved abroad after college. Actually, during college, I studied abroad in Costa Rica and Australia. And I realized you could live in other countries and it was really fun. So I started doing that. I lived in Costa Rica for many years, Nicaragua. I spent about 8 years in that section of the world. And then I started traveling because technology got good enough to travel and work remotely. So I started working remotely in 2008, like working from home. And then I started traveling full-time while I was working remotely in 2012. And then I did that pretty much up until the pandemic. And so during that time, I gained a lot of experience about life and living in different cultures and working on the road and running an online business. And I always loved writing. I always felt like I was a writer. And so I pitched a book to Wiley Publishing that does the dummies books, like accounting for dummies, like QuickBooks for dummies, that sort of thing. And I pitched them, I think it was 2018. This is another lesson in persistence. Yeah, 2018 was when I sent them my first proposal. And I found their contact info I actually reached out to other writers of dummies books that I found from news articles and things like that. And I somehow got some of their email addresses, and I ended up finding a ghostwriter for some of those writers. Anyway, got a contact there, sent them a proposal, and resubmitted the proposal for 3 years. But at the time, the pandemic hadn't happened yet. So nobody even really knew what a digital nomad was. And then after the pandemic in 2021 is when they said, okay, I think we get this now. We're ready for you to write this book, because it was all over the news, like remote work and digital nomads and things like that. So I wrote that book, Digital Nomads for Dummies, 2021, 2022. It came out actually almost exactly 2 years ago. It was August 2022. Wow. And that is a guide for how to work online while traveling. And a lot of musicians are doing it as well. Now, it can be harder because you have more equipment to bring around with you, or maybe you want to slow travel, but it's a really good way. Like, let's say you're a techno producer. You could just go to Berlin for 3 months and work online and meet people and network and go out and produce music and maybe take some courses or something, and just put yourself in the geographical scenario where your people are, where your target market is, where your ideal colleagues are living and people in the industry. And that's what I did last year. I spent 6 months in Manchester because I love that kind of UK minimal music. I met so many people, so many promoters, so many producers, record labels. I now have 2 monthly radio residencies for UK radio stations. Actually, one of them I just stopped doing. It's called Aja Radio, and now I'm doing Subtle Radio out of London. So things like that are really fun. So that's what this book was all about, is how to be a digital nomad for dummies, step by step. And now I'm starting another book, which is called Moving Abroad for Dummies, which is how to move to another country long term, live there, get residency, things like that.
That's incredible. So it's definitely a book that I will read. I can't imagine something that would be more connected to people who want to DJ for a living. This seems like the path to at least getting started. And for one, seeing if it really is for you and experience it. Does this help people figure out how to budget for this type of travel and the movements and things that you learned along the way?
Yeah, it talks about pretty much everything I've learned, from budgeting and planning to how to find a remote job or how to monetize skills that you have already. There's a lot of producers I know that they create music for stock footage sites like Epidemic Sound, Envato, things like that. So they get royalties from that music that can sometimes pay better than, traditional record labels and things. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways they make sound effects for those websites, stuff like that. So it covers that, ideas for finding jobs or making money. And then also the travel aspect, how to plan all of the logistics of the travel. And then when you're doing it, how to manage your lifestyle, moving from place to place, but also the mental side, the emotions, the culture shock, the loneliness, meeting people, languages, all of that.
That sounds incredible. I so appreciate this conversation that we've had. What I'd like to do, just finishing off, is give you the opportunity to let people know where they can pick up the book, and any websites that you want to give out. Feel free to do that, and where people can find you on your socials and follow your DJ career as well as your music and all these other aspects of things that you do.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jason. Thanks for the opportunity. And I hope people got a lot of value from this, and also seeing how you can be a beginner at something and have fun and still make progress. You can be a professional at one thing and then a beginner at something else and be at all different stages of the journey. I'm no longer a beginner DJ anymore, but I'm a beginner producer, but I'm will be a 2-time author. So it's you can be at different levels. It's all good. We don't all have to be experts at things. So yes, the best way to connect with me would be on Instagram or YouTube. So my Instagram is KiQi Music, which is spelled KiQi. My YouTube is KiQi DJ, KiQi. And that's basically the two main places for my music content. And then for Digital Nomads for Dummies, you can find that on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any big bookstores. And then if you're interested in like my travel content, my travel podcast, living abroad, stuff like that, that's all under a different brand called Traveling with Kristin, which is Kristin.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. It's great to have you. I'd love to do this again and check in with you in maybe a few months and kind of see where you're at with things, and I'll stay in contact with you as well. So there you go, guys. That's Kristin. And I hope you guys learned a lot from this. I hope you enjoyed this type of content, and I will speak to you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
With that said, guys, if you're benefiting from these podcasts, you'll absolutely love my two best-selling books, The Mental Game of Electronic Music Production and The Process for Electronic Music Producers. You can also check out my Ableton courses and instruments at musicsoftwaretraining.com/products. And if you're looking for personal guidance with your music production or Ableton, you could set up a free chat with me to go over exactly what your best next steps are to create the best music of your life. If this interests you, just go to musicsoftwaretraining.com/private-coaching. And with that, have a fantastic day and happy music making.